Harwood, thank you very much for the update. Appreciate it. Now, folks, I have to say, please brace yourself for this one. I happen to agree with President Obama on this. China's got to play by the rules. They have to play fair. And I think working through the WTO, the World Trade Organization, is the right way to go. That's what it's there for. There's a process, and it's orderly. And it's not a trade war. It just defends American interests. But let's see if the other guests agree. Here now we have former President Reagan economic advisor John Rutledge. We bring on Peter Kiernan. He's a former Goldman Sachs partner, author of a provocatively titled new best-selling book on China, and Stephen Fenwick, CEO of DHL Express America. Mr. Kiernan, let me go to you first on this point. What's wrong with this? These are strategic minerals. China subsidizes their businesses, and they restrict exports, drive up the price for those who get their hands on it. Why shouldn't we use the World Trade Organization as a court for fair trade?
No, I think the right thing to do now is go to court. We've been patiently trying to negotiate behind the scenes. Once upon a time, the U.S. was a leader in rare earths. Now about 97% of that is housed in China. And if you want to get access, you basically have to move your manufacturing to the Chinese. You have to be in Chinese territory in order to get access. We need to get to a play fair kind of dialogue. You use the phrase trade war. I don't think trade war is the right way to go at all. I think going to court and working through the WTO.
No, I'm saying there's not a trade war. That was an absolute key part of my comment. Let me be very clear about this. I'm opposed to a trade war. But, all right, let me bring in Stephen Fenwick. Stephen, what I'm suggesting is the WTO, World Trade Organization, is a trade court. It's a process.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if we have a complaint, let's take it there. You know, a couple years ago, we had a similar complaint, we, the United States, along with Europe, on Chinese industrial commodities. And we won that complaint. So it's not a trade war, Stephen. I think it's an orderly process, and I think we should stand up for ourselves.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. You know, the right course is to go to the WTO. We don't want trade wars because it does nobody any good, not only the United States and China, but also, the rest of the surrounding countries. I mean, trade is critical. It's vital to our business, but we just can't get into these sort of tit-for-tat attacks on each other. And that's what the WTO is there for. So let's use it. I totally agree with you.
All right, that's very interesting. Now, John Rutledge, I reckon you don't agree with this, but I'd like to know why. Why shouldn't America stand up for its own trading rights?
Well, Larry, I believe in due process, and I like the idea that this thing is going to be heard in the WTO. Let's remember, this is less than 24 hours after the WTO yesterday upheld a ruling against the U.S. So it works both directions, and that's just fine. But let's get serious, what this is really about. We have an election in November. The U.S. is growing. Europe and Japan are not growing. People are frightened after the financial crisis for their jobs. There's not enough growth. This is a growth problem. And what we have in the press conference today, along with Romney remarks recently, is tribal chest-thumping, competitive China bashing for the election. So this is not about the rare earth. The rare earth problem is real. But let's face it, why do you think they call it rare? It's valuable. There's not much of it.
Well, it's in our military construction. I mean, missiles use this stuff. But Peter Kiernan, let me go to the Romney story. Get your take on this. Mr. Romney is running, as John Rutledge said, very political. He's very tough on China. He's being backed by Donald Trump, who is probably the toughest China basher there is in all of America, Peter. But Romney says the first day he's in office, he will label China a currency manipulator. Now, that is something that Obama has not said. And I myself have a problem with that. That's not WTO. That's just an American assault on China. Peter, what's your take on the Romney program? Does he go too far? Is Obama the moderate here?
Oh, I think the trade saber rattling of calling someone a currency manipulator on your first day in office feels to me like overreaching. The thing about the WTO is it indicates that we've got to be thinking about these issues a little more carefully. Rare earths, as I said, was something where we had our own capacity for a long time and decided not to do it. There are other issues that we have basically let China take. China makes 80% of the world's vitamin C. We've had issues with tires. I agree with whomever said, let's try and airbrush the politics out of this and focus on it as an economic matter. Our working together with China in an embrace, in a tango, is a way to solve our trade problems long term.
Mr. Fenwick.
Larry,
yes, please,
an important thing about this, about the trade both ways, right? We are, we trade daily across the Pacific, and a key thing out of China into the Americas is also growing our growth out of the Americas back out to Asia and over to Europe through the trade with China. So you can't look at it just in one trade lane aspect. You've got to look at it on a much broader aspect, and that's what we do every day in DHL, right?
But let me ask you.
So I'm really concerned about that.
All right, let me ask you about the currency manipulation. Do you think the yuan is too low? Do you think it should be revalued? Do you think that should be part and parcel of a new China trade strategy? In other words, Stephen, I hate the intellectual property rights they steal. I hate the counterfeiting. All that should go to the World Trade Organization. But I want to ask you, in your direct operations with China, do you need a more expensive China yuan to make sense for your business?
No, because they've allowed it to appreciate over the last year, I guess. I lived out in Asia before. So they've let that happen, and it's going to continue to happen, I guess, naturally. And no, we don't need that. What we need is clear decisions on trade and really go to the WTA. Let's not get into this political toing and froing, and which will cause more damage to people as we go through to their jobs. Manufacturing in the US is actually starting to grow, and we're growing out of the States quicker, faster than we're actually growing out of China, which is not common, admittedly, but that's what's happening to our business.
John, I'll give you the last word. I just want to ask you, John.
Sure.
Do you think President Obama, serious question, because I'm with Obama on this rare earth mineral thing, do you think he has a better China trade policy than Mitt Romney?
I think that we're dealing with a D and an F at the moment. But to support Stephen, the trade balance has just been released from China. It was minus $31 billion. Exactly. Reserves have not increased since last summer. The RMB is not going up because the market is not pushing it up anymore. It's done for now.
All right, we're going to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Tough discussion. John Rutledge, thank you. Peter Kiernan and Stephen Fenwick.